Join us as we uncover the symbols, the stories, explore the mysteries, the power, and the legacy of a kingdom that is still unfolding. This is a journey where history, prophecy, power, and people converge, and the story is still being written, from ancient kingdoms to the spaces where modern voices meet. Voices that refuse to be silenced, part of a heritage that continues to shape the present. The past is not dead, it lives, it speaks, and here we listen, we reason, we respond, and we testify. We dive into ancient truths, symbols, and signs still relevant today. The scepter has not departed, the mystery is not lost, and the kingdom, it is still unfolding, one episode at a time. This is more than a podcast, it's a return to the source. Welcome to the Scepter of Zion, where ancient truths meet modern voices. And now, to conversations, truth, and power, the scroll begins to open. And here to guide us through the gates, your trusted voice and seasoned guide, a voice for the remnant, your host, Reuben B.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Scepter of Zion. Well, today we're going to peel back layers of history that's been sitting in the basement of empires for about 900 years, but probably a little bit longer. So we're going to pry open the vaults of history with the same determination as a prophet cracking a seal. So today we're going to step right back into the Moors, a land where education wasn't just a system, right? It was a spiritual wisdom and conscious technology. Yep, a place where knowledge was sacred enough to honor, sacred enough and powerful enough to structure societies. Also dangerous enough that empires tried to bury it under their kingdoms, crowns. But they had this like little forgetfulness that was going on within these kingdoms that took this knowledge, made it their own. Anyway, we're going to cover that. So a school just wasn't a school in Iberia, Moorish Iberia. It was also a temple of minds, a workshop of the soul, a place where Hebrew ethics, Islamic science, African geometry, and the Mediterranean wisdom braided together like a strand of divine codes. This is where the world, shaped by minds who still carried the old Hebrew beliefs that wisdom is a form of light. From Proverbs to Al-Andalus, the ideals were the same. If the Creator gave you knowledge, you know you were required to multiply it, to study, to show thyself approved, right? To teach was to serve, to learn was to ascend. It was about understanding the order of heaven. In Iberia, it was 24 hours of knowledge. Universities, right? Medical schools, translation house. All power about the belief that learning wasn't just an achievement, it was a form of worship. Because in Iberia, they understood something the world still struggles with. Ignorance isn't a lack of information, it's a lack of illumination. And they were in the illumination business. The light before the enlightenment. So, the blueprint was already laid. Europeans and the rest of the world, they copied this. It was their homework. And then years later, the powers that be worked overtime to bury this, right? Simply because light exposes architects where this stuff came from. And if the world realized where your rebirth really came from, or the world knowledge really came from, they would have to rewrite the textbook. And then they would have to rewrite their pride. Huh? You can't build an empire on illusion of superiority while admitting your teachers came from the very people you tried to erase. Slaves, enslaved, killed, separated, four corners of the earth, right? So you smudged it, edited it, trimmed it, locked it up, hid it in your lodges in secret. Huh? You know what? So today we shine the lamp back on Iberia, where Hebrew ethics, African science, and Moorish intellect woven a tapestry so brilliant that the whole kingdom felt safer, pretending that it never happened. Yeah, they just want to bury stuff. Welcome to the Scepter of Zion, where forgotten lights is restored. Hidden truth stands trial, and wisdom, as always, is still the judge. Get ready, because once you see how the Moors built their world, you'll understand why so many try to erase it. This is where history stands trial, y'all. Truth gonna take the witness stand, and wisdom is, as always, is holding that gavel. We're gonna be right back after this, and we're gonna dive into, right? We're gonna dive into some of these, or one of these educational systems that the Moors set up. You go, oh man, you're gonna love it. The light of Al-Andalus, Cordoba, the great learning center of African Israelites civilization. Not Jerusalem, not Egypt, but Cordoba, or Cordobas, a city once called the Good Town, a place where wisdom of Israel, not the Israel that's over there fighting in the Middle East, that is not us. We are the ancient Hebrew Israelites, King James Bible, right? Our identity has been stolen, and we're going to cover identity theft later. Okay? Africa and Arabia joined hands and the world of rediscovered knowledge. This is the light of Al-Andalus, the story of how the African Israelite civilization rebuilt Europe mind, the Europeans' mind. Actually, the whole world, basically, let's say that. America too. Because the Europeans, they left Europe and came to America. So they just bought that with them right over here. You know that. So once again, we built the Europeans' mind, revived its science, and reignite the lamp of divine wisdom. Huh? Yeah. So the name itself, Al-Andalus, has long puzzled historians. Its origins reach way back. So basically, it's the historical name of the Arabian or Iberian Peninsula, region of the modern-day Spain and Portugal. Of course, it ruled from 711 CE through 1492. Wow. Al-Andalus, great cities, Cordoba, Granada, Seville, and Toledo. Not Toledo, Ohio. So I wonder if Cadillac got the Seville name from the Spaniards or the Moors. Seville was the little short one. It might be too much information, but people don't know about the Seville Coupe Cadillac. Well, anyway, let me move on. So when you read about Al-Andalus, think of the ancient name. It's the ancient name for Iberia. It's to those who came from the east, from the Nile, from the Jordan, from the deserts of Arabia. Al-Andalus meant the western land, a place where the sun set. To the Israelites and the Africans who crossed from Kemet, Iberia was the edge of the known world, the sunset of the earth. So in 711 CE, these dark-skinned travelers crossed the narrow sea of Gibraltar. The pillars of Hercules to the Greeks, that's what they called it. But to them, the gateway of Ham and Shem. They were nations of Africa, families of Judah. Wanderers from Arabia together, they found what Europe later called Moorish Spain. Though the word Moorish simply meant dark or Western Africans. Among them were Hebrew Moors, descendants of the house of Judah, who carried with them Torah, memory, temple science, and the sacred geometry of their ancestors. They joined with the Amazians, the Nubians, and the Nubidians. So they formed this alliance that would plant civilization brightest seeds in the West. Right? Guys, you see this alliance right here? This alliance joining together. So this city of Cordoba grew from this union, this good town. So it came from seafaring Canaanites, Israelites, merchants who had long traded along these coasts since Solomon ships sailed to Tarshish. I think that's where Jonas got sucked up out of the whale, right? Something like that. African Israelites, Arab guidance. Cordoba blossomed into one of the most radiant cities on earth. So the University of Cordoba, however, it was not like a single university, like European schools, but these universities in Europe, they followed though, they had this model, Oxford and Cambridge. You always hear them talk about these schools of higher learning. So it was basically an ecosystem of learning, a citywide sanctuary of wisdom, 70 plus libraries, observatories, hospitals, Scriptopia, which was basically a writing house, and academics. Every street corner was like a classroom, right? So the academics were private or state-sponsored schools where scholars gathered to teach, debate, research subjects such as medicine, math, law, philosophy, astronomy. Uh, they were often attached to these higher learners were attached to like mosques, temples, libraries, scholars, people homes, right? Rather than have like a formal university. So the knowledge flowed through its lane like waters through an aqueduct. People studied not for prestige, but for enlightenment, believing that every discipline revealed another face of Yahweh's order. Study to show thyself approved. Right? Right. That's what you need to do. So let's go back and see how we got here, though, to this point, to Cordoba. Before Cordoba could rise, the empires of old had to fall. Iberia, it was once conquered by Rome. It became part of the Roman Empire. But by the 6th and 7th century, the Roman Empire fractured. It was starting to collapse. Its western half had laid in ruins. Everything had nearly vanished. Trading had collapsed, right? This once mighty legion had withdrawn from North Africa and Iberia. Then come the Visigoths, who followed, but brought rules, but not renewal. These were Germanic people, Germans. You see how we all connect here? The Celts, German, Romans, Africans, Arab, all in this one place right here. Right? Rome, Greeks, all right here. All right in this one place. So the Goths, they were the member of the Goths, Gotham City. Well, anyway, the Goths invaded the Roman Empire. They migrated from Eastern Europe into the Western Roman Empire, eventually conquering them and conquering much of Iberia after Rome collapsed in the 5th century CE. So they ruled Iberia for, nearly 300 years, imposing harsh laws, heavy taxes, and they forced conversion to Christianity, to Catholicism, on Hebrews and Africans. Right? They forced this on the Eastern spiritual population. Over time, they were defeated, though. And they were absorbed by the African Arab Israelite alliance that formed Al-Andalus in 711 CE. Their descendants were largely assimilated into later Spanish and Portuguese population. Under their hand, Hebrew families and African tribes who had long lived in these lands faced oppression, heavy taxation, and exile from public life. Then came a new movement from the East, the Arabs' expansion of the 7th century. But contrary to the myth of sudden conquest, it was not a wave of foreign dominance. It was a slow invitation of alliance. Right? It slowly taken over. The Arab houses, many descendants from Ishmael and Abraham, right? Carry the same reverence, same God, same prophets, same scriptures that the Israelites honored. When their envoys reached North Africa, they found not pagans but kindred people, same type of people, Hebrews, Africans, who still remember the law of the one God. So by the early 700s, these alliances merged into a new order. Yeah. African Israelite tribes, long weary of the Visigothic oppressions, opened their gates to the newcomers, recognizing them as brothers of covenant blood. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Yeah, 711. 711 CE. Rome had left Iberia and just left chaos, just tearing up stuff. They was losing their grip anyway. They was losing their empire. It was falling. It was time for them to go. It was, get on up out of here. Abdul Rahman I fled from Syria after his dynasty fell to civil war in the east. He crossed North Africa, finding refuge among the African nations. They recognized him not simply as an Arab ruler, but a man carrying the same vision to rebuild civilization up on knowledge, up on justice, and up on divine remembrance. With support, he crossed the Strait of Gibraltar into Iberia and founded his new capital, Cordoba, around 756 CE. This capital was not built upon conquest, but upon covenant, shared rule, shared learning, shared laws. Let's just share, let's just get together and make this a good place to be. That's why it's called a good town. Let's make it just where everybody wants to just come and live, thrive, be happy. It was a government that valued knowledge more than gold, wisdom more than war. Wants to fight and die all the time. Have your kids fight and die for foolishness, for stupidity, ego, for words that are said. Stop it. So Cordoba became more than a capital. It became a living university of the soul. So by the 10th century, its streets were paved, lit with thousands of lamps, and the city was perfumed by gardens. Water flowed through the aqueducts. Scholars debated in courtyards. Physicians treated the poor in public hospitals. Right? Learning was considered an act of worship. a reflection of God's order in creation, a reflection of Yahweh's order in creation. And in this good town, the children of Abraham met again with the descendants of Isaac, Ishmael, and Jacob. The Hebrews, the Muslims, and the early Christians, the Nazarenes, studied side by side. Each called the people of the book. Here, divine wisdom united where politics had long divided. Yeah, it was in Cordoba that Hebrew Moorish families have preserved the sacred science of Israel. They taught medicine, mathematics, philosophy through the lens of the scriptures. This is why I tell you the scriptures, past, present, future, right? It's conscious. It's a cosmic order. It's cosmic energy. Their African counterparts master hydraulics and geometry, built the arches, the domes, the gardens that made the city shine like a jewel of the West. And together they proved that civilization is not from race or conquest, but from cooperation, right? Let's do this together. And from the reverence of truth. Cordoba was called the ornament of the world. So when travelers from North Europe arrived, they rode home in astonishment, saying, "Here, the lamps burn at night. Here, the streets are clean. Here, books are numerous." While the rest of Europe stumbled in darkness, Cordoba walked in the light. Thank you. We're coming to the end of the show today. You've been listening to the Scepter of Zion. I'm your host, Reuben B. Remember to follow us on YouTube, Spotify. What else we got out there? Amazon. Just follow us. Share. Like. Share and like again to your friends. All right? Stay rooted and resilient. So until next time, we'll see you again. More information.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Scepter of Zion. If something stirred your spirit, sparked a memory, or whispered truth into your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, walk in it. We invite you to invite others into the conversation, into the unfolding. This is more than a podcast. It's a movement returning to the root and rising with the call. Until next time, hold the line, guard the flame, and never forget who you are, because the kingdom isn't coming. It's already here and rising, one voice at a time.
You've been listening to The Scepter of Zion, a Kingdom of Shalom production. Subscribe, share, and join us as Zion rises again.